I just want to make sure the sound is okay. Now, I know for some of you this is your first time using Adobe. I can tell using the poll below me, but if you could just follow me down to this poll down here, can you let me know how the sound is? So you should be able to answer the poll to let me know you're hearing me loud and clear. So if you can't hear me, you'll be able to work it out. That's great news. I can see that everybody can hear me loud and clear. So for those of you who it is your first time using Adobe, you'll be able to see that I'm talking to you through the webcam. You can hear me, but I can't hear you. So during the session, if you need to communicate me, we have a chat box, and you can ask me questions at any time using the chat box. Here's the chat box down the bottom, and I can see somebody's already typing. Hi Erin, thanks for typing. So this is how you can ask me a question at any point during the session. Hi Erin, I can see Katie's typing as well. So if you want to ask me any questions, please pop them in the chat box, and if I need to ask you things, sometimes I'll ask you to put an answer in the chat box for me. So there are polls that we can set, we've got the chat box to communicate, and if I need you to have access to any documents, we've got a little file to download box. You might be able to see that right down at the bottom. At the moment there is a document that you can download. It gives you some tips on how to sit an exam online using the ATT's Exam 4 software. So if we need to get you any documents via PDF or Word, we can pop them into that files to download box for you. So everybody can hear me, that's excellent. So we'll get started with our introduction to ATT Paper 1. Now I'm going to start using the memory joggers for Paper 1. So hopefully you can see those memory joggers on your screen. And we're going to start at the very first chapter, just thinking about the basics of income tax. So I'm going to get to my first page in the notes. There it is. Introduction to the UK tax system. So in here we're thinking about, we're going to be thinking about income tax and how it's calculated. If you do have a set, it would be a really good idea. If not, you should be able to follow through on screen. But ideally, you'll have a set of memory joggers that we've sent you. You'll have a set in front of you, or you'll have a PDF copy that you can access via the Academy. Same for the study manual that I'm going to be looking at as well. So if you can access that on the Academy, if you haven't got a hard copy, that would be really useful. What we can do at break time, if you haven't got access, I can always see if I can get one into the download box for you. So in this session, we're going to be thinking about the basics behind income tax. Now, income tax is a tax that we pay for. We pay it for a tax year, so we're going to be preparing calculations for a tax year. And in the UK, we have this funny old tax year. It starts on the 6th of April and it finishes on the 5th of April. So a bit of an odd system, something that's built up over hundreds of years, really. It took us to get to that 5th of April, 6th of April date, but that's where we are. So the first day of the tax year is the 6th of April, last day is the 5th of April. Now, before we actually sort of dive fully into the material, does anybody have any idea how much what percentage of government revenue comes in through income tax? So have a think about that while I have a look at Erin's question. So I want you to think about what percentage of government revenue is collected through income tax. Good question, Erin. No, for companies do change their tax rates via based on 1st of April, but for individuals we use the 5th of April. Okay, so I can see we've got a variety of percentages. So what percentage of government revenue is collected through income tax? Let's have a look. We've got 70. We've got quite a variety there, haven't we? Lowest is 15. Highest, someone's gone for 70%. Well, it is the highest, or the government's biggest source of tax revenue, and it comes in at 31% of our tax revenue. Second to that is NIC, and just for comparisons, VAT works out about 16-17%. Excellent. Well done, Monty. Congratulations. So yeah, I mean 1%, but yes, well done. Excellent. So it is the highest source of revenue for the government as far as tax revenue is concerned. So what we're going to think about is how it's calculated and what it has to be calculated on. Now, if we have a look in the memory joggers, it tells us, actually, before I get to that point, there is a little topic that we'll get to a little bit later. When we get to chapter 10, we will see that there are some slightly different rules we have to follow when we're dealing with Scottish taxpayers or Welsh taxpayers. But I'm going to put that on hold for now because that's something that you'll take a look at a little bit later. So for now, we're not going to worry about the Scottish or Welsh taxpayers. We'll look at the basic income tax calculation. So when we're calculating income tax, we have to know, firstly, what is subject to income tax. And there are lots of different sources of income that we need to categorise. So we're going to look at the different types of income that somebody should have. And then most importantly in this chapter, we're going to identify what you don't pay income tax on. Because really important to know if something isn't subject to income tax, because who wants to pay tax when they don't need to? So we're going to look at what's exempt as well. So the different categories of income that we'll see flowing through into our income tax computation, we've got trading income. So for anybody who runs their own business as a sole trader or a partner in a partnership, they will generate trading income that needs to be subject to income tax. If you own a property, whether it's in the UK or overseas, and you rent it out, that will generate property income. And we'll need to know what profit from that property needs to go into your income tax computation and be taxed. For many of us, our main source of income is through employment. That's going to be subject to income tax. So a lot later, we'll think about how that's going to be taxed. Some of you may have savings, so in the form of either bank accounts which generate interest, or you may hold shares which generate dividend income. So that all needs to be subject to income tax as well. You may have foreign income in the form of interest or shares. It could be foreign income in the form of property income as well. That does need to be taxed. And if there's anything else that doesn't fit into one of those categories, but it's not exempt, then we can bring that in the form of miscellaneous income as well. Now, in the next chapter, we will think about how that's taxed, but for now we're just thinking about the different sources of income and what's taxable and what's exempt. Now I can see Gary's just put a question into the chat box. Wouldn't foreign income be taxed overseas instead? Well, that's a really good question, and we might find that some of our sources of foreign income are taxed in the UK and also taxed overseas. As far as our exams are concerned, if there is any tax that's been paid overseas, then we will have to claim what we call double tax relief. And that will ensure that we will get relief for some or all of the tax that we've paid overseas. So we'll never pay tax twice. We will have this double tax relief available to ensure that we only pay, in effect, the highest rate of tax. So whilst some may be taxed overseas, it may also be taxed in the UK as well. And much later on, we'll think about how we're going to get that relief.